Do you want to dominate Marvel rivals with Star-Lord's blasters and aimbot ultimate? I'm Dash, a one above all peak player and a top 10 Star-Lord, and this guide will teach you combos, counters, and playstyles to skyrocket your kills and win every match. We're breaking down his full kit, from element guns to Galactic Legend, so you can rule the galaxy. Smash that like button if you're ready to rock, and let's blast off. Let's unpack Star-Lord's kit and break it down. He's a 250 HP duelist built for mobility and damage, but he's squishy, so play smart. Here's every ability in detail. Element guns are Star-Lord's dual blasters, firing 40 hit scan bullets per second, each dealing 6.5 damage at 0 to 10 meters. That's 260 DPS, the highest primary fire in Marvel rivals. Headshots double to 13 damage or 520 DPS. The 40-shot magazine empties in 1 second with a 1.5 second reload. Damage falls off linearly from 10 meters, hitting 5.74 damage per bullet at 15 meters, 4.98 at 20 meters, and 65% per bullet at 25 meters and beyond. Pro tip: track heads at close range for one-clip kills, and tap fire at 20 to 25 meters to manage spread. Here's another tip: aim for the head against bigger hitbox heroes with low mobility or predictable movement patterns such as Groot, Thor, and the Thing. It's easier to land headshots on them because you can track their movement and aim for a larger hitbox, but against your 250 to 400 HP heroes, it'll be much more difficult to consistently land headshots as they have smaller hitboxes and more jerky movement abilities. I would just focus on landing shots wherever I can on these characters, especially the highly mobile characters such as Spider-Man or Black Panther. Stellar Shift is a dodge and reload move. You dash in any direction with 2 charges, each on a 5-second cooldown, and get 0.37 seconds of invincibility. It auto-reloads your element guns, skipping the 1.5 second reload. This ability will also reload your guns after using the Blaster Barrage ability. Use it to evade stuns like Mantis Spore Slumber or Luna Snowball. Remember, you can also dodge ultimates if you time it properly. Try dodging a Wanda ultimate or Doctor Strange ultimate the next time you play, and just practice getting the timing down. Pro tip: save 1 charge to escape, and don't burn both unless you're securing a kill. Also, as of Season 3, Star-Lord now gains 25 HP each time he uses Stellar Shift. The ability will decay to 0 HP after 3 seconds if he doesn't take any damage. I didn't have any footage of this as this was recorded before the new season came out, but it was important to note. Rocket Propulsion gives you flight with an 1800 energy pool, buffed in Season 1.5 for 50% more fuel. Short bursts use 300 to 400 energy, letting you dash 20 meters or fly for about 7 seconds max. Use it to grab vantage points or escape sticky situations, but try to keep 50% fuel for emergencies. Pro tip: cancel early to conserve energy for quick repositions. Blaster Barrage fires a 3-second bullet storm in an 8-meter radius, dealing 225 total damage, 75 per second, on an 8-second cooldown. Season 2 nerfed its damage, but it's still deadly for grouped enemies or 1v1s. Keep in mind that the closer you are to the target, the more damage you'll do, although the difference in damage is not that significant. Use it when enemies clump or to finish low HP targets like Mantis. Pro tip: pair with Rocket Propulsion to dodge while firing, especially against grouped enemies during a chaotic teamfight. Use Rocket Propulsion to stay in the air above the enemies during chaos to not only do damage but build massive ult charge. Also, in a 1v1, do not engage with this ability. Instead, use it as a finisher after using your primary fire to get a target to low health. Star-Lord's new team-up is that he joins Penny and Rocket. He can throw down a device in which he can teleport to. Again, as this was pre-recorded before the release of Season 3.5, I don't have any footage of this, but just know that he has a teleport. Galactic Legend is Star-Lord's ultimate. For 8 seconds, you get free flight with infinite rocket propulsion fuel, 20% faster movement, and 70% faster reloads. Element guns auto-lock enemies within 30 meters, dealing 300 to 400 total damage, though no headshots. Use it to target healers like Luna Snow or finish weakened enemies. Pro tip: this is pretty obvious, but save it when defensive ultimates are down, since Galactic Legend cannot kill through support ultimates other than rockets, and even though it's still pretty difficult. I should mention this is a big reason why Star-Lord is weak into triple support in my personal experience. Alright, now it's time to change Star-Lord's abilities and put it all together. These combos maximize damage and mobility. Let's get to it. So for Star-Lord, the chunk of your damage will come from your primary fire, element guns. You have 2 charges of Stellar Shift and 1 Blaster Barrage you can use in a theoretical 1v1 situation. So what you want to try to do is close the distance, Remember, Star-Lord does his most optimal damage at 10 meters or less. Empty a full clip into your target, use Stellar Shift to both dodge their attacks and reload your element guns, and then repeat the same pattern for a second time if they're not dead after the first go around. If they're still alive through essentially 3 clips of your element guns, they're likely low. This is where you would use your Blaster Barrage to finish them off. Remember, always use your Blaster Barrage as a finisher in a 1v1 situation, not as an engager. The only other time you should be using your barrage is in the middle of a team fight where enemies won't necessarily be focusing you, as you have to get close and you'll be vulnerable in the middle of the enemy team. Make sure to stay elevated and above the enemies while using Blaster Barrage in a team fight so you're not an easy target to hit. For your ultimate combo, you've got Galactic Legend, Stellar Shift, and Element Guns. During Galactic Legend, don't forget to use your Stellar Shift after you use the clip, as Star-Lord needs to reload his guns during his ultimate still. You want to maximize damage in the 8 seconds that you're in your ultimate, so make sure to use Stellar Shift wisely between reloading for more DPS or dodging attacks from the enemy team. Also, try not to use Galactic Legend when the enemy team is super clumped together unless it's all squishy characters and not the tanks. If they're all grouped up, it's hard to lock onto a single target and damage will be spread out, which is not what you want. You want to make sure that you're finishing off enemies that you're attacking with your ultimate. Now let's talk about hero matchups, and let's begin with the matchups that Star-Lord is weak against. Although Star-Lord is incredibly versatile and can be generally picked into most situations, there's 2 very key heroes that you need to be aware of. The first of which is Emma Frost. Good luck ever trying to get an ultimate off against her because she will for sure be holding hers to counter you and kill you as soon as you use Galactic Legend. The second hero that will give Star-Lord trouble is Magneto. And yep, you guessed it. Good luck trying to get an ultimate off against him too, because he will pop his as soon as you pop yours to protect the team. If the enemy team is running both Emma and Magneto, then your best option is to swap off of Star-Lord. Think about it, not only do you have to keep track of 2 healer ultimates, now you've got to keep track of 2 tank ultimates as well. That's 4 ultimates that directly counter Galactic Legend, and if you're not getting value from your ultimate, it's going to make winning that much harder. So don't be boneheaded, just switch characters. Doctor Strange. He can block your damage in your ultimate, but you can play around this. If you take flanking positions against him, you can get him to turn around and look at you, diverting attentions away from your team so that they can poke him and the rest of his team. I'd say he's not really going to give you too much trouble as long as you're able to flank properly. Outside of those 3 tanks, Star-Lord really shouldn't have an issue. Let's move on to Duelists and strategists that Star-Lord is weak against. Black Widow, Hela, Phoenix, and Hawkeye may cause you some issues when you use Galactic Legend. Since you're basically a sitting duck in the air, these heroes can easily shoot you out of the sky if you're not properly being healed by your team. Otherwise, during regular combat, they can still poke you out since you need to get closer to deal significant damage to them. Remember, if you're playing Star-Lord into these poke-heavy heroes, you need to take an off-angle flank position behind cover in order to close the distance and eliminate them. Let's quickly talk about Mr. Fantastic. He's not necessarily a counter, however he certainly is annoying. He will beat you at close range, which is where you need to be fighting to get kills, and he can chase you down if you run away. It's not the worst thing in the world to play Star-Lord into Mr. Fantastic, but it's certainly not ideal since you can't really get close to him in a 1v1. He will beat you in that scenario. As far as healers go, Loki is really the only one that gives you issues. His lanterns hard counter your ultimate as you cannot kill targets being healed by this ability. If you play Star-Lord into Loki, make sure that you try to bait out his lanterns before using Galactic Legend to get most out of your ultimate ability. Other than that, the hardest part about eliminating the other healers will be their small hitbox, so being accurate is key. We've gone through poor matchups for Star-Lord, now let's talk about some of the heroes he's very strong against. Let's start with Groot. Groot has very low mobility and you're able to use Stellar Shift and Rocket Propulsion to maneuver around his walls and shoot at him. Combine that with the fact that he has one of the biggest hitboxes in the game, and due to his lack of mobility, tracking headshots on him is pretty easy. The only thing you need to be careful of is, during Galactic Legend, his auto attacks have range so he can poke you out while you're in the air, so make sure to keep your distance and take a good position when you use your ultimate. Next up is Penny. In my opinion, Star-Lord is an exceptional pick to counter Penny. What does Penny do best? She locks down an area and prevents melee dive characters to attack the area that she has her nest placed. Pair her up with Rocket and her lockdown is increased 2-fold. Why is Star-Lord so strong into her? Well, as we've stated, Star-Lord is an off-angle poke or flanker, so with your Rocket Propulsion, you can take an angle somewhere in order to shoot at and destroy her nests, allowing your team to move in. Not only that, but Penny has limited mobility as well, and without a shield to protect her, you can freely poke and shred her health. Whenever there's a Penny on the other team, especially with Rocket, I almost always pick Star-Lord. He's such a powerful pick into the situation. Now I'm going to group the Thing, Thor, and Venom into the next explanation. These three heroes are again brawl and dive tanks. What do they lack? A shield. What is strong against brawl characters that lack shields? Poke characters. While not as strong as a pick as the Winter Soldier, Star-Lord is still pretty good into these three tanks. You'll be able to kite the Thing and Thor, so theoretically neither of those two tanks should really be able to get close to you. Against Venom, you don't really have much kill potential on him, but Star-Lord is really good for poking him and peeling for your backline when he dives. Additionally, they've got massive hitboxes, and the Thing and Thor have mostly predictable movement patterns, so you should be able to track headshots more efficiently against these two heroes. Let's move on to Duelists, and we'll start off with Magic. In my opinion, Star-Lord is incredibly strong versus Magic. Again, against melee heroes, you can kite them. Against Magic specifically, you can kite her and use Stellar Shift to dodge her melee combos. You can also save your ultimate to counter hers. When she pops Darkchild, you can use Galactic Legend and eliminate her in her ultimate before she takes out your healers. Next up is Squirrel Girl. If you close the distance on her and avoid her stun, she's easy to kill. She's a decently sized hitbox with predictable movement. As long as your tracking is at least somewhat on point, you should have no problem taking her out. Make sure to use Stellar Shift to avoid her stuns, since that's really going to be the only way that she can kill you if you're within close range. Now, the same goes for Punisher. If you get close in against him, you should generally win that fight 9 times out of 10. The only thing you really need to worry about is getting 2-tapped by a shotgun, so as I said with Squirrel Girl, you really need to make sure to use Stellar Shift to avoid his damage and outplay him. Let's talk a little bit more about the dive characters such as Spider-Man and Black Panther. Personally, I think Star-Lord is a pretty good pick against these characters, as you can dodge Spider-Man's uppercut and Black Panther's spears with Stellar Shift. Not only that, but when they dive your backline, you can use Blaster Barrage to get them to retreat, particularly Spider-Man, since he doesn't have the benefit of overshields like Black Panther does. Also, remember, Galactic Legend is very strong into movement characters since it's an aimbot ability. Black Panther and Spider-Man simply die in almost all scenarios against Galactic Legend. You just get so much out of Star-Lord if you're playing against fast-moving characters simply from the ultimate ability. Now let's talk about flying heroes. This will include Storm, Iron Man, and Human Torch. Let me emphasize that Star-Lord is almost just as powerful into these characters as Hela and Punisher. Again, his ultimate is basically a guaranteed kill against any flyer, especially Torch and Storm, since their mobility is very limited. Iron Man might be a little more tricky since he can fly away, but if you pop your ultimate in a good position and target him first, he won't be able to escape. More people should be playing Star-Lord into flying compositions, but I just never really see it happen for some reason. For healers, Star-Lord is my go-to character to take out Rocket Raccoon. Rocket is incredibly mobile and has an annoyingly small hitbox, but if you can land some shots with element guns and Blaster Barrage him, he will die fairly easily. And once more, as I've said with other highly mobile characters, Galactic Legend will kill Rocket wherever he tries to run away to, granted that he is in range and in line of sight. The same thing goes for the Shark, and Galactic Legend is very good for saving your team against the Shark's ultimate. Save your ultimate for when the Shark uses his, and just gun him down as soon as he eats your team. If the Shark doesn't swap characters, it's a free win for your team. Now let's move on to some of the playstyles you can adapt. There's essentially 2 ways Star-Lord can be played since he's an incredibly versatile hero. If the enemy team has a lot of dive or brawl characters, you can stay near your backline and peel. As we talked about previously, these heroes I mentioned need to get in close to deal damage, so you can poke them out with element guns before they're able to move in on your backline. If and when they do make it back there, you have a powerful ability in Blaster Barrage to deal AoE damage and make them think twice about continuing their engagement or having to retreat. After all, without your healers, your team will fall apart, so you need to help protect them if there's a lot of pressure on them. Now, if the enemy team doesn't have a lot of dive characters and instead have more passive characters that stay further back, you should adapt to a more flanking playstyle. You can start roaming the map and take poke engagements near cover rather than sticking next to your team. What this will do is divert attention away from the main battle and force players on the enemy team to shift their focus onto you, disrupting their defense. When you're doing this, try to rely more on health packs around the map rather than your own healers. Flanking is generally going to be more of a solo job, so adjust your playstyle accordingly. Don't overcommit into a fight unless you know you can secure a kill. Sometimes being able to make space for your team is more than enough to push the payload. But that's going to be it for my one above all Star-Lord guide for Marvel Rivals. Master his blasters, combos, and aimbot ultimate to dominate. Drop your best Star-Lord play in the comments, hit like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more Marvel Rivals guides. Winter Soldier or Mantis next? You tell me. I'll see you guys in the next video.